Most retirees have spent decades learning how to save money, but almost nobody teaches you how to spend it. And that's the problem. Because turning a portfolio into a paycheck is a completely different skill than building the portfolio in the first place. Today, I'm going to show you three of the most common ways retirees generate income from their investments, why two of them create more problems than they solve, and one approach many retirees use to help manage retirement income in market volatility. Hi, I'm Scott O'Connell, and this transition from saving to spending is one of many problems I help retirees solve every day. Let me get into it. First method is living off interest and dividends, and it's the one most retirees reach for first because it sounds like the safest thing in the world. The idea is elegant. Build a portfolio that throws off enough income to cover your expenses and you never have to touch the principal. In theory, the goal is to preserve principal while living off portfolio income. Here's the number that changes everything. If you need $60,000 a year to live on and the S&P 500 dividend yield has been running close to 1% in recent years, you may need several $1 million in assets depending on prevailing yields and your income needs. Several million just sitting there doing nothing except spinning off income. Most retirees don't have that. So what do? They start chasing yield. High dividend stocks, REITs, junk bonds, anything that promises a bigger payout, and this is where additional risk can start to emerge. Higher yields often come with additional risks that retirees need to understand. A company paying 7 or 8% in dividends is usually paying that due to the risk. Those dividends can disappear overnight, and they do. I've watched retirees build what they thought was a bulletproof income machine only to see those dividends slashed in a downturn right when they needed the money the most. There's a second trap inside this approach that's harder to see. When your entire strategy is built around yield, your portfolio stops being built around what's right for you. It gets built around whatever pays the most. You end up concentrating in a handful of sectors, underexposed to others, and your whole financial foundation is resting on income streams that were never guaranteed to begin with. It's like building a house and letting the price of lumber decide the floor plan. Now, if you're watching this and realizing your strategy is built around chasing dividends, you're not alone. This is exactly why we help clients at Tactical Investment Advisors think through the real trade-offs. If you want help analyzing whether your approach works, I've put a link in the description below to book a time with me. The second method is systematic withdrawals. This is where most financial planners start. You take a fixed percentage of your portfolio each year, typically 4%, and you withdraw that amount regardless of what the market is doing. The 4% rule has decades of research behind it. But here's what that research was built on: a 30-year retirement, a specific mix of stocks and bonds, U.S. historical returns going back to 1926, average inflation from a completely different era. Change those assumptions and the results may differ significantly. But the real danger isn't in the assumptions, it's timing. If the market drops significantly in the first few years after you retire, those early withdrawals do something that's very hard to reverse. You're selling shares at depressed prices, which means fewer shares are left to participate when the market recovers. The portfolio may have a much harder time recovering because fewer shares remain invested during the recovery. That's called sequence of returns risk, and it can materially reduce the sustainability of a retirement plan that appeared sound on paper. Think about two retirees, identical portfolios, identical withdrawal rates. One retires in 2007, the other retires in 2009. Completely different outcomes just because of timing. The 4% rule doesn't care when you retire. It just keeps telling you to withdraw. And then there's the hardest part of bad timing, the psychological trap. When your portfolio drops 30%, are you going to keep withdrawing the same amount? Most people can't stomach it. The fear is real, even though historically things will work out, but what if? They either slash spending and live in unnecessary scarcity, or they keep withdrawing and watch the portfolio shrink faster than they expected. Neither outcome is what retirement was supposed to feel like. Now, here's one approach that attempts to address both of those challenges. It's called the bucket strategy, and for many retirees, it can offer both practical and psychological benefits, which is why it holds up when markets get ugly. Instead of treating your portfolio as one giant pool of money, you split it into three separate buckets, each one built for a different time horizon. Bucket one is your paycheck, 1 to 2 years of living expenses in cash or cash equivalents, money market funds, fixed income, a high yield savings account. This is the money you live on. And here's the key: It's generally held in a lower volatility cash or cash equivalent investments. So when markets drop, this bucket is insulated. You keep drawing your monthly income without being forced to sell a single stock. Bucket two is your bridge. 3 to 7 years of expenses in conservative investments, shorter term fixed income, some dividend paying stocks. Things designed for modest, stable growth. Its only job is to refill bucket one when it runs low. It's not there to grow aggressively. It's there to be ready. Bucket three is your engine. Everything else goes here: stocks, equity funds, long term growth investments. The intent is generally to avoid drawing from this bucket. That gives it time to survive full market cycles, recover from downturns, and actually compound the way it's supposed to. Now, here's why this changes everything psychologically. When the market drops 30%, you're not panicking. You can look at bucket one and see 2 years of income and stable, accessible assets. You know bucket two has years of runway behind that. You can let bucket three fall, recover, and grow without being forced to sell a single share at the worst possible moment. But here's the part most people miss. The bucket strategy only works if it's managed actively. You need to refill bucket one from bucket two at the right times and refill bucket two from bucket three with the right method. Get that wrong and you've built a more complicated version of systematic withdrawals. Get it right and you've built an income system designed to better manage a wide range of market environments. So which one is right for you? If you have substantial assets and a low withdrawal rate, the dividend approach can work. But go in knowing you may be concentrating risk you cannot see. If simplicity is your priority and you understand sequence risk, systematic withdrawals are clean and straightforward. But if you are looking for a framework that separates short-term income needs from long-term growth assets, the bucket strategy is worth understanding more deeply. Here's what I know after years of watching retirees navigate this. There's no perfect strategy, but there is a worst outcome, and it's picking an approach by default without understanding what you're actually signing up for. The shift from saving to spending is one of the biggest financial transitions of your life. The decisions you make during this transition can have a meaningful impact on your retirement experience. If you want to build a retirement income strategy around your real numbers, book a time with me. The link is in the description below.